When I came into real estate, I'm like, I'm just gonna be myself. It's such a substance-heavy industry.
Real estate is a very stressful industry, and it is very substance heavy.
In the sobriety community, I would be described as a chronic relapser.
It's very hard to stay on track.
He said, you should look into this new community. It's called Keller Williams Clarity, and I think it has something to do with addiction. KW Clarity is a community within Keller Williams.
I wish it can be done at every company.
Support network for anybody that struggles with a substance addiction.
Said if we can save one life, we're happy. We've done so much more than that.
My role is the Canadian Community Director. What have I been up to? So, new year, new me. No, new year, same me pretty much, and just trying to better myself. So what I'm doing is lots of work with real estate. I'm always lead generating. With real estate, you're constantly, that's all it is lead generation. That's your full-time job. So I'm constantly lead generating. I'm trying to get in front of as many people as possible and build relationships. And that's probably the one thing I love about real estate the most, especially for someone like myself. It's very easy to isolate. And so building relationships with people is my favorite part. So I've actually taken on a seasonal job at the gym that I go to, just so I can meet people in the neighborhood. I recently moved to this neighborhood, didn't know anybody, so I really wanted to meet people in the neighborhood. So I took that job so I could meet the people, they can get to know me. It's been a great start to the year. I've had a couple deals that closed. So my 2024 is looking great. It's just up to me how it goes forward from there. And other than that, my focus is on my kids right now and, the relationships with my family and friends and just trying to continue to build on those. Yeah, so my role is the Canadian Community Director. KW Clarity is a community within Keller Williams, the brokerage I belong to, that is a support network for anybody under the KW umbrella that struggles with a substance addiction or has been affected by substance addiction in any way. We want to reach everybody, and it all is a support network. We just want to reach as many people as possible within Keller Williams, because that's what we're focused on. Because we know they exist, we know they're out there, and the goal is just to reach as many people as possible and help as many people as possible. I'm prone to isolation, and an idle mind is devil's playground, and it's so true for me. So I'm prone to isolating, and I can very easily sink into myself, and start to fall backwards. So it's a constant battle to push myself out of that comfort zone. And I'm very lucky. I came from a great family. I have two loving parents who are still together to this day. My dad is like my favorite person in the world. He's just a great guy. And so I had a great upbringing. I was really lucky. We came from an Irish Catholic family, and my family, we had a huge family. We liked to get together, like to drink, like to swim and have pizza nights, and it was a blast. I had tons of cousins, and so my childhood was just filled with activities and sports and family, and it was amazing. And so my first real introduction into drinking was through family. It was through fun and family and laughter. And I remember mixing drinks for my grandfather, and he'd have me taste them first to make sure they were good. And it was all good fun, and nothing was malicious, and everything was it was great. And that's what I associated with drinking early on, was just happiness. I had young uncles that they would give me their beer to go get them another one because it was empty. Yeah. And they would, and then it was like, yeah, go finish it off type deal. And that's kind of how, I guess you could say, I was introduced to it. To me, it's more of a feeling. Like what makes me know that I'm an alcoholic, besides my drinking habits, is I've just never felt different. Mm-hmm. I've always felt this way. I've always been drawn to it for whatever reason. Yeah. And maybe that just perpetuated it. But so yeah, that was basically my introduction into it. And then it just, you do the normal things, go to high school, then you start being a teenager, and it was fun and exciting to go to bush parties and to drink with your friends, and just spirals from there.
Okay.
Drinking coffee like an alcoholic right now.
I admit it.
I admit it. Because when I look back on my childhood, it's funny, very similar. I just felt like I didn't have a direction really. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't think much about what was next, what I was going to do next, what was my life going to look like, what was I going to do, and I had other issues I was struggling with. I had some anger problems that nobody really know where they came from. And I was just a misguided child. I didn't have direction, and I was almost unbearable at home at times. And yeah, I was always the person that wanted to keep drinking, and it was so much that. But and then it goes to not thinking I had a problem because we're young. And so I remember everybody else, like family especially, recognized that there was something wrong, there was an issue. But I would always say, I'm 21 or I'm 20, I'm 18. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's gonna pass. It's just a phase. But this, what 21-year-old doesn't drink? And so, but like when in hindsight now, I look back and I'm like, yeah, I really didn't have any direction. And my friends were going to college and they were working great jobs, and they had money to go out on the weekends. And I didn't have money. I was a mooch. I was taking what I could get. And that's when I look back, it's like, yeah, there was some really unhealthy patterns there. I mean, there's roots in the family that struggle with alcoholism. My mom's father, my grandfather, for example, he was an alcoholic. I never met him. He passed away when my mom was 16. But it's funny, I read a letter that he had written in a psych ward, or something like that. It was a psych ward or something way back when. And you would have swore it was me writing it, like asking for money and cigarettes and stuff from the psych ward. I'm like, oh, and my mom was like, that's you. And so, yeah, I never met him, but apparently, according to my grandmother and my mom, that I'm a lot like him. And then on my dad's side, my grandfather on my dad's side, although a very, very successful individual, and just like I can see why my dad is the way he is because of his father. But there was definitely some, he liked to drink pretty heavily. I would say he was a very high functioning alcoholic. Some would say he wasn't, but that's just my thoughts on it. And then we've had other family members who have struggled, of course. And so I saw glimpses of it, but I left Windsor pretty early, I guess you could say. And so it kind of spiraled in a different way for me. So when I left high school, like I said, no direction, right? And I didn't know what I was doing. I was out of control. I was partying. My parents were fed up with me. I'm like, I'm gonna go to Calgary. So I went to Calgary, and then I ended up having my son when I was 21 years old. So my son is 15 now. So I had my son when I was 21, and I had him in a different city from Windsor. It's a very interesting story of how that came about. So I had him in a different city, and so it was an opportunity to be like, okay, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm gonna make a change. And God, there's a whole story around that. It's actually kind of funny, but that was fun telling my parents. It was interesting because I had to like sit them down at the table, and I gave them a little speech about it's an opportunity for me to make a change and do the right thing. And well, with that being said, and he was already born, and I said, well, here's your grandson. No. A couple of my family members, I was kind of letting it out.
Yeah.
A couple of my family members knew, but yeah, my parents didn't know. And my mom started crying. My dad was like deadpan. She got up. I thought she was going to smack me. And then she gave me a hug, and she's like, Larry, say something. And he's like, I think this is good for you. Yeah, it was. It was. It was. There was a lot of shock, obviously, but you know what? In hindsight, it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because it got me out of there. But when I moved away, I moved to a city that I didn't know. I started trying to go to college, And I had brought myself with me, unfortunately. And I was scared, and I didn't know how to process the emotions I was dealing with. And I had a baby, and I came from a house with a father full time, and I wasn't that to my son, and it was a lot. There was a lot going on, and I wasn't processing emotions properly, and I used drinking to definitely cope with it, and that is when it really started to spiral out of control. I think when I really recognized, when I was in Calgary, when I was finally out of the house, and I was away from my friends and the partying, and I had went to the other side of the country, and I was still bringing a full case of beer home at night and bottles home at night and drinking alone. And that's when I really started to be like, oh, I don't think this is normal. I don't think I should be doing this, but I couldn't stop. So that's where I really recognized it. And no matter what I told myself, like, I'm going to make, this is going to be an opportunity to make a change. I always brought myself with me. Right. Yeah. But then when I had my son, that was kind of the catalyst, and I just didn't process things properly the way I should have. And that's kind of where it took off, I would say. Oh man, well, it got this is the thing. I mean, people in the sobriety community, I would be described as a chronic relapser. Like chronic relapser. And I'm okay with that. So I went through like many years. I mean, my first stint in rehab, in a treatment center, I should say, was when I was 25 years old. So I had my son when I was 21 in a different city, and then 25, I was, I had a friend that, he had the book on life. He was doing so well, and he kept saving my life. He kept saving me and letting me stay with him. But then there was a point where it was like, I finally was like, there's something, I have a problem. He was a great guy. He had a life going on. He was doing his thing. He was killing it, and I wasn't. And I was like a stain in his apartment. But he cared deeply about me, and I him, and he kept saving me. He kept allowing me to be there. And so I went away to treatment when I was 25 for my first time. And then that basically started a 8-9 year span of treatment, detox, hospitals, rooms in a basement, rooming houses, and that just went on and on for like 8-9 years, nonstop. I honestly, I tried to count how many times I've been to treatment. Some of them I've been to 3-4 times. So it's been exhausting to say the least. It's hard for me to kind of put it in order too, and like and to think about and to make it make sense, because there's just so much that I want to talk about. And like, I'm not talking about personal stuff too, and my family might see this, so it's difficult because it's everything is on me at the end of the day, right? Nobody did anything. And I always own that, like, I'm the problem. It's because of me, my fault. Like, I missed time with my son because of me, right? And my life was the way it was because of me. It was nobody else's fault, and at the time I was happy to pass blame all over the place, right? But at the end of the day, everything was my fault. But it's really hard to talk about those really personal things. That I don't really talk about too much with people, because there's just so much there, and I don't want to leave anything out. But at the same time, I could sit here all day. Everything I learned, I basically learned through failure. Even in my real estate life, I can get really apprehensive about doing things, and I'm always questioning myself, and I have imposter syndrome, and I don't feel like I'm good enough and stuff like that. And so I really have to train myself that it's okay to fail. And you know what? That's the way I'm gonna progress in my work life as well, is fail and fail often, because that's how I learn, and that's how I learned through treatment. And God, I wouldn't change it now for anything, because it was nonstop learning. If you look at the way I was relapsing, but they were really, really bad. Most shouldn't be alive. I shouldn't be alive. I've been in horrible situations, and I've been 6 times the limit, and having full conversations with doctors, like totally coherent. And I would have to drink half a bottle of vodka in the morning just to be normal, so I could feel okay to get along with my day, you know. And they were horrible relapses. I could have killed people. I put people I love in dangerous situations. You know, I drank and drove like an asshole, and I'll say that because that's a horrible thing to do. I'm putting other people's lives at risk. And I've been in serious car accidents because of it, with friends with me. Just yeah, the relapses are horrible. They're a nightmare, and it gets to the point where I was just drinking away the withdrawals because I just couldn't deal with the emotions of the next day. I couldn't deal with the anxiety, the paranoia. I was having, you know, audio hallucinations and visual hallucinations, you know, and I couldn't take it. I was going to kill myself, and the only way I could get through days was force myself to get alcohol somehow. And yeah, the relapses were nightmares. But you know, desperation is a wonderful, wonderful thing, for me at least, because when I was so desperate, I had no more money, or I was in a hospital, I had nowhere to go. I would have to go back to these places that I knew would take me. You know, thank God these places exist in this country, because without them, I mean, who knows where I would be. But there was places that were like the end of the road, but also the beginning for people like me, because it gave you a safe place to go. They would feed you, give you a bed, and they would start helping you make a plan to go back to treatment and to start again. And so those places exist, and I was in those a lot because I was so desperate. I just wanted people to listen to me, and I wanted people to talk to. I just wanted to get through the withdrawals and try to improve. So, I mean, everybody has a different experience and how they kind of find their sobriety and what journey they take and what path they go down. You know, when someone comes to me and they're brand new and they don't really know where to start, you know, I always tell them, you need to go to a meeting, go to AA, go to a meeting, AA, NA, whatever it is. Go to a meeting, because there's an entire world of recovery, and you need to go see it. You need to go know that it exists. Where if you ever go backwards, you know where to find it. So I always tell people, you know, go to a meeting. And then, you know, if it's something a little more serious, I mean, there's tons of options out there for treatment. You know, I didn't know how many resources we really had. And my first stint in treatment, I had known about a treatment center in Windsor prior to that anyways. So that was kind of a no-brainer. And when I'd made the call to my family that I was ready to get help, they were like on it. They drove 4 hours to come get me, drove me to detox in Windsor, and then I went right into a 90-day inpatient and pretty intensive treatment center. So that was my introduction. And then as I continued to go up and down on the roller coaster of addiction, you know, I would find more and more resources. You know, I would find these rooming houses that were, you know, the end of the road, but the beginning for a lot of people. And they were amazing. They saved my life. I mean, I call it a rooming house. They were, you know, some of them were pre-treatment centers, they would be referred to as, or pre-treatment, post-treatment centers. There's one specific that I went to a lot. I went to a bunch of times in Welland. I wonder if I can say the name. I mean, you can cut it if you want. So it's called Wayside House, okay. And it's in Welland. Welland? St. Catharines? Oh my God, St. Catharines in Niagara. Yeah. It's called Wayside House, and it's just this, you know, 3-story rectangular building. Yeah. And I think it houses about 50 guys or so. Okay. And you can go there, and they've got programming going on, and, you know, they've got staff on site and programming, and, you know, they set you up with a routine where you have responsibilities to clean and cook for the guys. They were always there to take me in and give me another chance. And they're, you know, myself, and there's other guys that had been there 20 plus times. Yeah. You know, just trying again and trying again, and we knew it was a safe place where we could go. And, you know, the obligation was to stay sober and to make a plan to go to treatment. Honestly, real estate was a huge help. I mean, it was a huge help. I really wanted. My dad would always tell me, you know, give yourself a chance, like see what you can do, like give yourself a chance, like realize your potential, just see what you can do. And that always stuck. And so when I started with real estate, it was like, oh man, this is an opportunity to really, do something I've never done before, and I hate to make it about, money, but like have some financial security that I never could have imagined for myself, that is there, and it's my own business, and, I can work for myself and answer to myself. And so it was a huge driving factor. I'm not going to lie. I really wanted to do better, and I wanted to provide for my kids and, go on vacations and, do things I never thought I'd be able to do. Um, and then obviously my kids, like not being there for them, it's like a nightmare. It eats at my soul. I mean, even now it eats at my soul that I'm not there as much as I could be. So, yeah.
KW Clarity is a support community within a real estate company to help real estate agents and associates at our company with the unique set of challenges we face in this industry. Real estate is a very stressful industry, and it is very substance heavy. A lot of people turn to the bottle or other substances as a way of coping with the stresses, as a way of networking and helping grow their business. So being sober in this industry, it can feel very alienating. And it's very hard to stay on track and feel like you can still achieve the same things as every other agent at this company. So this community really gives us the space that we need to achieve the same things as everyone else. We just might take a different route that supports our recovery. The idea just came to me that this could be something that we need. I was feeling a lot of shame around my own journey. And I think when this started building momentum, it eliminated not just my shame, but a lot of other people's shame around it. You had mentioned, how it's stigmatized. That's the kind of world that we want to create, is one without stigma. Um, I don't know if it's that I've just connected with so many agents on this journey, or that we're creating this ripple effect, but I've noticed that on my news feed now, I have so many agents across the US and even across the world that are posting about their recovery. They're like, hey, look at this new milestone that I reached. We have a lot more people willing to say, hey, I have 1 day or I have 10 days, and they show up on our calls. Um, the other thing is that we kind of act as a bridge between the real estate world and the recovery world. So we are not authorized to provide, recovery treatment. We don't have that type of licensing, and we make that very clear because we want people to be in good hands. But we can do what any other alcoholic or addict can do, which is I can tell you how I got out, and hopefully that will help you get out too. Or I can connect you with the resources that I use to get sober or get clean, and that will help you. So that's been a big part of what we're about. And we've seen it work in a massive way.
So I'll start by telling you kind of how I got introduced to KW Clarity in the first place. So I had moved. I had a friend of mine had introduced me to the new brokerage. Like, it was another affiliation of KW. It was another market center for Keller Williams. A friend of mine had introduced me to that market center, and I loved the people there, and so I moved over to them. And when I came into real estate, I'm like, I'm just gonna be myself, because it's such a substance heavy, ego driven industry, which is great for me because I'm substance heavy and ego driven. Trying to work on that. And so, but when I came in, I'm like, I'm going to be myself. If people aren't going to want to work with me because of my past addiction issues, that's okay. I appreciate that. I'm not offended by that. I totally get it. People have had some really, really negative experiences with people with addiction issues. And so I understand that not everybody wants to work with somebody like that. So when I moved over to this brokerage, I said, I had talked with our operating principal, and I told him, this is my story, and he thought it was fantastic. And they were incredibly supportive. And then they had went away to an event called Family Reunion. So Keller Williams does some pretty massive events each year, and Keller Williams is like their biggest one. when he came back, he said, hey, you should look into this community, because we have these internal communities inside Keller Williams. He said, you should look into this new community. It's called Keller Williams Clarity, and I think it has something to do with addiction. You should look into it. So I did, and I had seen Shelley, and they at the time they were hiring for their board of directors, and I didn't really know what any of this meant, but I applied. She interviewed me, and her and I just really connected, and she was like, I would love it if you would, be me in Canada and take it through Canada and be the Canadian director. And like that was like life-changing almost. It was just getting started. We really knew nothing. Right. They just, KW allowed it. Yeah. And, obviously at the end of the day, it is a business, and there is things that you have to show that there's a need for it. And there's that people that want to engage in it. And we weren't concerned about that at all. We knew it was going to be a thing. And so when I got introduced to it, it was still brand new. And so we're still taking it. I mean, for me, I'm taking it at a snail's pace right now through Canada, because I'm very involved in what they do in the States. I'm at the board meetings, and I'm watching what they do, and watching Shelley, because she's just so good at it. So that's how I got introduced to Clarity. And then, my market center just they boosted me up so much, and they were reaching out. My team leader at my market center, her and I really connected, and she kept reaching out to the higher ups in Keller Williams and telling them my story, and saying that, oh, there's this guy in here, we really want him to be successful. And the president of Keller Williams at the time reached out, and he flew me to Texas for their mega camp event. And I got to sit with him for 20 minutes and talk with him, which I didn't even realize was a big deal at the time, until people were like, this is I can't pay to get time with him, especially 20 minutes. So it was a huge deal, and it meant so much. And it was such an incredible experience. And then he invited me to family reunion this year in Las Vegas, and was going to fly me out there too as well. But it was my market center. They totally lifted me up, and they were like, they did this for they tell me you did it, I did it, but really they boosted me up. They helped me a lot, and gave me these opportunities, and I'm just kind of running with it slowly, like a light jog. Right. It's a work in progress, but it's so necessary. And just to go back to the stats, it's obvious. Those are obvious numbers, because of course productivity is affected, especially in industries like this. And I think that's why, and I love Keller Williams, they probably got me for life because of this program, that because of their recognizing this, and they're allowing us to bring it out of the shadows and put it out there. Because of course people's productivity is affected by it. We're under the wellness umbrella, but there's been such a need for it, and such a community around it. And I've told people that early on, the messages that we were getting, because we were just directing people to the Facebook group. How are we getting members? We're just directing people to the Facebook group. That's how we were getting members at the time. Join the Facebook group so that we can show numbers. And the messages we were getting, they were amazing. There was I'm in top producers saying I'm in this situation, and I don't know how to get out of it. And it's that's their outlet, is to reach out to their Facebook group at their brokerage, right? It's when there's all these other resources out there, and and people should, somebody shouldn't be suffering in silence like that, the way that they were. So the community is just it's just a support network. That's what it is. We just want to help people to have a safe space that they can go to events and not feel weird about not having a drink. And and that's the thing. I proudly tell people, if they offer me a drink, no, I'm sober, because then people immediately stop, right? They stop trying to get you to have one. And I've had nothing but a great response. And I think that's the problem, is we think people are going to be, weird about it or put off by your sobriety. Never had that experience. I say, I've been sober. And then that spirals into a conversation about sobriety and their own personal experiences. I obnoxiously insert this story into most of my conversations, because I'm I know that it's gonna spiral into another story, and then we're just going to connect on a personal level that we never would have got past surface conversation, like with lawyers and people that would have never talked to me in the past. Like I'm having these deep conversations. It's like we never would have broken that conversation ceiling of surface level conversation had I not mentioned it. And yet everybody knows somebody, is somebody, has somebody who's been affected by it. So I mean, we have people now that reach out after, I'll do a meeting for a market center and I'll introduce it to the market center, and I'll have people call after and talk about, family members that are struggling, they don't know what to do. And, when we're not counselors and we're not therapists, right? All I can do is speak on my own experience and what worked for me, and what my family did for me as well. And that's basically what we do. We speak on our own experience. When I went out to Mega Camp, when I was invited out there, Clarity had a booth out there, and so that's why they brought me out, is so I could be a part of it and I could meet Shelly and the other members of the team and be part of that. And that's like, if I had gone to that, it was a massive event, like I think 12,000 people. If I had gone to that event, stayed in a hotel room in another city, without that community, it would have been really difficult. And we had so we were like that pillar. And like you were just saying, like if I'm at an event, people know me as the Clarity guy, then if they're there and they're trying not to drink, well, then they see me and it's like, oh, I can kind of hold on to that and go hang out with Adam because I know he's not drinking. Right. So yeah, it's giving people a safe space. It's all it is. And we had people reaching out to us, like I told them not to stalk my mini bar in my hotel room, and they stalked it, and I'm like staring at it. And so we'd be like, we're gonna get somebody over there at these events, like these work events. No, you don't think about it at all. And that's why I say, like, when I have these open conversations and I'm open about it, it spirals into something that you couldn't have thought, right? Like I'm doing an event Saturday, and there's a woman that her and I have become really fast friends because she was at my previous event, and she approached me after I spoke, and she's like a monster in her industry. And she approached me after I spoke, and her and I just like immediately, she told me this crazy story that she has. And she's like, I don't talk about it. Nobody really knows about it. And so her and I have been connecting ever since. And I'm like, I've been telling her, maybe you should start sharing that openly because it's going to help you heal. And you're going to save lives, right? When I was at the Keller Williams event speaking, sorry, I'm on a tangent, but I was at the Keller Williams event and I was speaking with the president of the company, and his wife was in the room, in this conference room. She was just kind of sitting at the back with her friend. And it had come up that she stopped drinking. And I asked her, and then we were trying to go back into the conversation. And I'm like, no, why did you stop? Like, why? What made you stop drinking? She's like, oh, I tried this 70 hard or something, like a challenge.
Got it. Okay.
Right. And so she had done that. And then she's like, I came out of that and I felt great. And I just kept it going, kind of similar to you. She's like, I just kept it going and I kept it going. And then she started telling me about her mom, and her mom was an alcoholic and she died from it because of it, like as in direct relation. And I'm like, right there. Like, I understand everybody shares their story as they want to. And I don't expect anybody to do anything that they're not comfortable with. But I'm like, can you imagine your husband's the president of the company, you're his wife. If you told that story, that how many women you would affect in this company by telling that story, who probably who think you're on another level, but you're still human, right? You still have these human experiences and these traumatic experiences. And if you shared that story openly, you would change lives. And I told this woman that I'm doing this event with the same thing. Like, you would change lives. Take it at your own pace, but man, you got to share that because you're going to really help people. That's what it's all about. There's a connection that people with addiction issues have that is unlike any other connection I've ever had. Like, sitting in treatment centers, people always ask me, why did you pick up? Why did you go back to drinking? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have a good answer. And it's like, well, there's got to be a reason, right? There's got to be a reason. In treatment, guys would be like, well, what happened? I'm like, I have no idea. Why'd you pick up? And I honestly don't know. And they'd be like, yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Like, we're like the same person. We just come from very different backgrounds, different situations, but that addiction, we connect on every level. And it's like, some of the best times I've ever had was in treatment centers. Some of the most times I've ever laughed was in treatment centers. Yeah, and it's the situation. It's everything about it. Like when I would be in there, we'd be sharing our war stories, we would call them, and we'd be like looking at each other like, that's crazy. I can't believe I did that. Like we would be blown away by what we did and put ourselves through. And I mean, yeah, the connection is almost is uncanny, right? And I would go to these places, and like I said, desperation would get me into them, but the people would keep me there because I knew they were like-minded individuals, and they've been through the same things, they've done the same things, and I would have that connection, that comfort with these people, right? Because I've done so many things where it's like, how am I going to get past this? Like, how am I going to get through this? How could I do that? Yeah. Talk with people that have done it. Connect with people that have done it. And if you're sober curious, and you're curious about being sober, and it's like, I go out with these people and they're so used to me drinking with them. And I'm going to do this time, I'm going to say no. Like, why am I going to say no? And like the thing is, you don't really have to explain yourself to people, right? You don't really have to. You just, it's easy to say, well, you should have the confidence to just say, I'm not drinking tonight, or to say I'm sober, right? But not everybody can do that. And I think it's important to connect with like-minded people to navigate that in a way that works best for you, right? So it's just people helping people. What's my advice to somebody that maybe is in that situation and hasn't had the time to connect with other people? I don't know. Be confident.
Yeah.
But I mean, right?
Yeah.
But it's easy for me to, like you said, it's easy for me to say, because I'd be like, I'm sober, leave me alone.
Yeah.
If I drink that, you'll never see me again. So, right?
Yeah.
I'm allergic.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you're allergic? Yeah, I break out in handcuffs.
There you go.
That was one. Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
Or I used to say I'm allergic. And that was always a good one. It's becoming more accepted.
It is.
And so I think it's a lot easier for people nowadays to say, yeah, I'm just not drinking, which is great. This is what should have happened a long time ago. Just people connecting, being with people. Trying to do anything alone is so dangerous. Once I start to isolate, then I know I'm in trouble, because I have almost subconscious patterns that I see now that I didn't in the past, where I will strategically start to isolate myself. And so I've met so many great people in real estate, other agents that I'm now friends for life with. Like I just connected with, I have a guy this morning, and we're like, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. We're gonna get on the phone for 10 minutes and talk about what we're gonna do for the day. And Monday to Friday at 9 a.m. I'm with Shelly and another gentleman who's in the community for Clarity, and we meet Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. on the dot, and we stay on Zoom for however long we're there, and then people sign off, and that's it. So it's just connecting with people, being around people. Real estate can be a very lonely industry. It can be isolating. And so when I went out and got this seasonal job, it's because it was like, I need to get out. I need to be around people.
Yeah.
It's just people. That's what's keeping me accountable. I mean, also, I've rebuilt relationships with family, and I've rebuilt relationships with my kids, and I've caused so much hurt to the people, and that's what addiction does. Cause so much hurt to the people that you love the most. And it's like, I don't want to do that anymore. And my son is such a great kid. And he's been so understanding and so forgiving. And, there was times when I got sober, and I picked him up, and I'd be like, you should be mad at me. If you're mad at me, I want you to talk to me about it and tell me, because I don't want it to come out in other ways. And like, you should be mad at me, right? And he would, he's such a good kid. He would be like, no, I just don't go back. Like, just stay, just don't go back. So him and I have great relationships, and my daughter is 5, and I've already missed too much, and I don't want to miss anymore. I still have a long way to go. I'm still in the system, and right. And I should tell people that, like, I'm not, I'm not like this big time real estate agent. I'd like to be, and my end goal is to be a very successful real estate agent and have and accomplish all these dreams. But right now, I'm still living in a housing program because I'm still keeping myself there for accountability. I'm still going through it. I'm not crushing deals out of the park. I'm still struggling day in and day out with everyday battles of being a real estate agent and trying to lead generate, and trying to deal with sobriety, trying to deal with the fact that I'm not with my kids as much as I should be, but I'm still trying to do the right things and stay in housing, and everybody in my family's like, God, please just stay. It's working. You're doing great. Let's keep progressing at the rate that we're going. And that's the thing. It's like real estate. It's a long game. You might get some short-term wins, but like real estate is a long game. Sobriety is a long game, right? And I'm a all or nothing personality, and like I want everything and I want it yesterday. And that's just not the case. So I've taken it very slow, and I have to be kind to myself and understand that it's okay. You know, it's okay to be doing these things. It's okay to be in this position, and things are slow. Like my next thing, I have to get a car. I still don't have a car. I'm running around doing deals without a car. And I'm like, I really need to get a car, and so that's the next thing. And then it's like, because then I can commute and see my kids more, and it's just one piece at a time, one day at a time, and I'll get to where I want to be. I just have to learn to walk before I start running. Yeah. Do you know how lucky I am to even be allowed to have a relationship with them today? Their mothers, I'm so grateful because, as much of a disaster as I was, my son's mother and my daughter's mother are just incredible women, incredible mothers. Not a bad word to say. Like, I got so lucky that they, encouraged me to be in their lives, and they encourage them, and they're helping me rebuild those relationships. Mind you, there's still a lot of mending to do there, but like I'm very, very lucky to have those relationships the way I do. Whereas, not everything is, like you said, not everything is going to come back, right? You can't just expect people to, well, now I've been sober for 2 years. What do you mean? Like, come on, right? I still have broken relationships with some family members because of the way I was. And I don't know if those relationships will ever be mended, right? Luckily, my parents attended Al-Anon when I was early on, which I hated them for at first because they really knew how to deal with it, right? I get that. But at the time I was angry and I blamed them. But looking back, like, God, how difficult must it have been to be like, to put your own kid on the street and be like, no, you can't come here, right? And how hard must that have been? I put them through hell, 3 a.m. phone calls from the cops all the time, just waiting for one of them to be like, he's dead, right? And you can't expect all that to come back. I'm lucky enough that whenever I wouldn't speak to them for months and months at a time, but like if I ever picked up the phone and called bawling my eyes out, or for whatever reason in a hospital, they would always answer the phone. They'd always talk to me, tell me they love me. When I'm ready, they're going to be there. I always had support from them. Not an issue there. I'm grateful to have those, but yeah, like not everything is going to come back in your time, the way you want it to come back. All you can do is take it one day at a time. And it's easy to get caught up in the life that I have now and want more and want more and want more. But like when I have to constantly remind myself of how far I've come. Like I literally started on a dumpy little computer, and even something simple as that. I started on this really dumpy little Asus computer. It was like cracked screen and almost broken. And that's where I did like my first course in a shelter. And now I have a MacBook. And I'm like, oh, I could never imagine having a MacBook. This is so cool. Right? So even silly things like that. I have to keep things in perspective. Like, look how far you've come, and it was all because I went very slow. And just be grateful for where I'm at and the people that I do have in my life. And yeah. But you have to be mindful that it's not in your time. That's it, right?